councillors turning up who are even in the Pataru ward to the actual Pataru meeting, that's reflective of what happened 3 years ago. So I'm asking for a community board because we had the richest man in New Zealand who owned the mill, a guy called Graham Hart, who owned 57% of all the rural land. So we have a potential difference in this town of schools that are decile 1, and not only decile 1, they're decile 1A. They are the worst possible rankings you can have. So to have the wealthiest person in New Zealand and also some of the children who are the most disadvantaged in a district that has huge resources. For example, 70% of the water that's bottled that comes out into New Zealand is out of Pataru. And I sat around this table and watched this council sign a 35-year lease to the Coca-Cola company worth $1 billion. And, these are the sort of things, but then there's no mindfulness of what can we reinvest back into our local people. So for the last 10 years, I've been involved in coming along to meetings and recording them and putting them transparently up online. And so I'm asking now a community board, because it's very difficult to do it as an individual. So I would like a caucus of 12 people who represent all the elements of the community so that they build up an institutional knowledge, and the community, when they go and meet that group, they're able to get the reflection back of what is involved with just Tokoroa. This council deals with the bigger picture, the mill, it deals with the rivers, it deals with the farmland. But a community board would allow this town to have issues just for this town. And that will simplify a lot of those things. And good advice will then come up to the council. The other reason for having 12 in those other locations, and you mentioned before you can have 12 in Arapuni, and you can have 12 even though it's in the same ward. The reason is it's about generating a culture of what I understand the intent in Parliament when the Local Government Act 2002 was created, which is decentralisation and democratisation. That's the intent of the Local Government Act. It's been tinkered with by National with regards to a few things, but still the intent of Parliament is there. So asking for community boards is a part of bringing out the intent of Parliament. And I believe under the presence of the Queen and the treaty, that's what we're interested in. What is the intent of Parliament? And as loyal subjects, we want to bring that out. So I have done everything properly, interacting with this process through. What I have found difficult is when I saw the Chief Executive Officer before Craig Hobbs, which was David Hall, I said I'd like to see a community board for Tokoroa. He said, oh, okay, that's interesting. Then when he spoke to his advisors, he came back and he was very standoffish. He said, that's a silly idea, it won't happen, which was interesting. Now, the new CEO was appointed and I had the same meeting in his office. And the same thing, he was quite receptive when I first talked about it. Okay, but I'm letting you know that your opportunity to be outside this process and look in. Because yes, the personalities have to be put aside and just the pure nature of what the intent of Parliament. And have I followed all the procedures? Have I gone, did I drive to T-Rail and video it and the only person that travelled? Did I video the same one that was in across the road here with very few people? And Bruce Simpson, I note, is a person who's sitting, and he can vouch for the numbers that came. There was a couple of people. So my point is that even though what Ben said about the numbers and we went through the process, there's absolute, if I can say, 1 or 2 people at a town meeting. You can't say that's interacting with 14,000 people that live across State Highway 1. So yes, boxes have ticked, but I'm asking the Commission to look at it from the perspective of what the heck is going on when you have a community meeting and this is the level of engagement. And that's all I'm addressing, because I can only bring this taki up to this point and lay it before you. It's been 10 years and I would like to see a corporate body look after the interests of the community and not just an academic and someone who understands the Local Government Act from an academic perspective and uses it, if you like, as an academic process, as a rigor, to who may write a PhD on Tokoroa and what has happened in this decade, culminating in our meeting today. I've written a list before I came in I spoke to some kaumātua that were over at the radio station with regards to some things. And one thing that I wanted to make a note, and I did talk to Donald about it, and it's something that can be unofficially passed on to the minister, is if every community board throughout New Zealand had a 50% Māori membership that came off the Māori electoral roll, I feel, and the kaumātua felt, because we've been working on this for a decade, we felt that that would really bring back, instead of 4 people at the tea row, it would really rejuvenate what the treaty's about, what loyalty to the Queen, and what it means to be a citizen. So unofficially, I would like that to be, it's been mentioned, but it's something that can be brought up unofficially with the minister. The second point I have here, because I've done the first 10 minutes, I just want to go through my notes so that I cover everything. All community boards, yep, I've mentioned that. And I've mentioned about there is an appeal process that goes to the High Court if we wanted to for procedures. That was the second. The third one is I wanted to acknowledge those that have turned up today. Stalwart and Mr. Simpson, and an extraordinary person in the electronics field, and also some of the councillors. I've counted 5 people here today, including myself, who was at the Business After 5 last night, so we have a big turnout. And what we've got with Business After 5 is the soup kitchens coming along, and the chap who runs, they didn't want to get $167,000 a year from council at the last round, because they wanted to build up the businesses first. So that's the sort of money on offer from the council a year, $168,000 a year, to have a community, have a business association. I'm saying that money is far better spent on community boards throughout the district, and we're only asking for $300,000. So from my perspective, the council is willing to have that representation, but an elected body under the Department of Internal Affairs that actually gets a remuneration will allow a number of representatives to come and be a part of that, and that's much better for the community than a cap-in-hand situation like Pride and Pataru, a cap-in-hand situation like a business association where they have to kowtow to what council funds them. And a lot of times council funds things to fail by only paying 95% of what they need. But under the Department of Internal Affairs, the council will, the community board will have everything at its hands and what it requires. So that's another reason. I'm presently in a process of a Protective Disclosure Act 2000 proceedings. I'm not very happy with the present Ombudsman, Dame Beverly Wakeham, over that process, and this council, through official information request, has also gone to the Ombudsman's office, and they choose not to allow things to come out in 20 days. They want to take 2 years, which is a breach of the law. So from my perspective, this meeting here is part of the bigger process that's going on. I've learnt a lot. Lovely people around the table, and I've learnt a lot in my last decade, and I want to thank them for that. I want to say that it's been a wonderful place to my son and my wife growing that 10 years. So don't think I haven't had a wonderful time here, and it's been great, and I've learnt a lot, and it's been a great learning experience. But we're in the process of getting some major fundamental changes, and what happens with the protected disclosure, if the Chief Operating Officer can't handle it, it goes to the CEO. If the CEO can't handle it, it goes to the Chairperson of the Board. If the Chairperson of the Board can't handle it, it goes to the Ombudsman's Office. If the Ombudsman's Office can't handle it, it goes through the Speaker of the House, and the floor of Parliament talks about it. So when we're talking about democracy here, we all support, through the Queen, the ability to have a Parliament and a monarchy, be it the Māori Parliament, or the Māori monarchy, or the European through the treaty, but the process is there. So all of us around here today are working towards under those royalties. So we want to see the best, and you raised the question at the beginning of this. You mentioned about, here it is here, fair and effective representation, and what's good local government for South Waikato District. So I believe all of us around this room are here for that. They've put a presentation, I've put a counter, and it's up to that. Okay, so I'm on to number 5. So it's a wonderful town. It used to be 64 languages when the mill started in 54, 27 at the last census. and so it could be technically the United Nations of the South Pacific.